I never thought a simple email would be the thing to unravel my entire life. But there it was, glowing on my husband's laptop screen at 2 a.m., while I was just trying to print out worksheets for my students. My name is Harper, and until last night, I thought I had the kind of marriage other people envied. The kind where you finish each other's sentences and still laugh at inside jokes from your first date. Ethan and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5 of those. He was the guy who brought me coffee in bed every Sunday morning and never forgot to kiss me goodbye, even when he was running late for work. Your flight confirmation for the Chicago conference next week, the email's subject line read. Nothing unusual there. Ethan traveled frequently for work. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the way he'd been guarding his phone lately, or how he'd started working later and later. I clicked the email. The confirmation showed 2 seats. First class. I felt my stomach drop as I scrolled down and saw the hotel reservation. 1 room, king bed, 5 nights at the Drake Hotel. The booking was under Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, but I definitely wasn't the Mrs. Ellis going to Chicago. My hands were shaking as I opened his sent folder. Dozens of emails to someone named Vanessa Reed. The most recent one made me feel like I'd been punched in the gut. Can't wait to hold you again. These stolen moments aren't enough anymore. I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly closed the laptop. Ethan appeared in the doorway of our home office, his hair messed up from sleep. Everything okay, babe? It's late, he said, rubbing his eyes. I forced a smile. Just printing some things for tomorrow's class. My voice sounded strange, too high-pitched. Go back to bed. He nodded, stifling a yawn. Don't stay up too late. Love you. Love you too, I replied automatically, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. After he left, I sat there in the dark, trying to make sense of it all. The Ethan I knew wouldn't do this. The Ethan I married wouldn't. But then again, maybe I didn't know him as well as I thought. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to my sister Chloe, then deleted it. What would I even say? Hey, guess what? Your brother-in-law's cheating on me with someone named Vanessa. It felt too raw, too real to put into words yet. Instead, I went through the motions of printing my worksheets. My students were counting on these for tomorrow's lesson on Romeo and Juliet. The irony wasn't lost on me, teaching teenagers about love and betrayal while my own marriage was apparently nothing but a carefully crafted lie. As I gathered my papers, a new email notification popped up on Ethan's laptop. From Vanessa Reed, missing you already. Dinner was perfect tonight. Tonight. While I'd been grading papers and making dinner for one because Ethan had texted that he was stuck in a late meeting, he'd been with her. I closed the laptop and went upstairs to our bedroom. Ethan was already asleep, looking peaceful and innocent. I stood there watching him breathe, remembering how just yesterday I would have crawled into bed and curled up against him without a second thought. Now I couldn't bear to touch him. I grabbed my pillow and headed to the guest room, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been going on? Who was Vanessa Reed? And most importantly, what was I going to do about it? One thing was certain, Ethan's perfect little world was about to come crashing down. He just didn't know it yet. I made it through exactly 3 classes before breaking down in the faculty bathroom. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely text Chloe, "Need you. Can you meet for lunch?" The morning had been a blur of trying to act normal while my students discussed the tragic romance of Romeo and Juliet. Every time I heard the word love, I felt like throwing up. When Lucas, my colleague who taught in the classroom next door, asked if I was okay, I barely managed a nod. Chloe was already waiting at our usual cafe when I arrived. One look at my face and she knew something was wrong. "Harper, you look like hell. What happened?" I opened my mouth to tell her, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd taken of Ethan's emails. "That son of a bitch," Chloe whispered, her face darkening as she scrolled. "How long have you known?" "Found out last night." My voice cracked. He's taking her to Chicago next week. 5 days at the Drake Hotel. On your anniversary weekend? Chloe's knuckles went white around her coffee cup. I'll kill him. The worst part is, he's acting completely normal. Made me breakfast this morning, kissed me goodbye like nothing's wrong. I stabbed at my untouched salad. I don't even know who he is anymore. Have you Googled her? Chloe asked, already typing on her phone. Vanessa Reed. Oh. Oh wow. What? She turned her phone toward me. There she was, young, gorgeous, smiling confidently in her corporate headshot. Vice President of Marketing at Ethan's company. My stomach lurched. She's everything I'm not, I said quietly. Stop that right now, Chloe snapped. You're smart, successful, and way too good for him. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, having dinner with clients tonight. Don't wait up. Chloe read the message over my shoulder and swore. Clients. Right. Want me to follow him? No, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. I have a better idea. That evening, I drove to Ethan's office building and parked where I could see the entrance. At 6:30, I watched him walk out with Vanessa. They weren't touching, but the way they looked at each other made my chest ache. I followed their car to an upscale restaurant across town. Through the window, I could see them at a corner table. No other clients in sight. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand, the same way he used to hold mine. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Ethan, meeting running late. Might grab drinks after. I took a picture of them through the window and sat there, staring at it. Part of me wanted to burst in and create a scene. Instead, I drove home and did something worse. I acted normal. I left his dinner in the oven, graded papers at the kitchen table, and waited. He came home at 11, smelling of expensive wine and wearing guilt like cologne. Sorry I'm so late, he said, kissing my cheek. These clients are demanding. That's okay, I replied, gathering my papers. How was the restaurant? He froze for a split second, so brief anyone else might have missed it. What restaurant? The one where you had your meeting. I kept my voice casual. I drove by on my way to pick up groceries. Looked nice. Another pause. Oh, right. Yeah, it was good. I headed upstairs, leaving him standing in the kitchen. In our bedroom, I opened his closet and found the shirt he'd worn to work that morning. There was a smudge of red lipstick on the collar. Vanessa had been wearing red lipstick at dinner. I carefully hung the shirt back up and got into bed, my mind racing with possibilities. Ethan thought he was so clever, living his double life. But he had no idea what was coming. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start making some plans of my own. The credit card statement arrived 3 days before Ethan's planned trip to Chicago. I wasn't supposed to see it, he usually handled all the bills online, but this one came in the mail by mistake. Sitting at our kitchen table, I stared at charge after charge that told the story of his other life. Dinner for two at places we'd never been. A jewelry store purchase from last month, probably explaining the bracelet I'd spotted on Vanessa's wrist at the restaurant. Hotel charges from business trips that now made perfect sense. My hands were steady as I laid out the evidence on the table, the credit card statement, screenshots of emails, photos from the restaurant. Then I waited. When Ethan came home, he was humming. Actually humming. He stopped dead when he saw me sitting there. We need to talk about your upcoming anniversary trip to Chicago, I said quietly. His face did something complicated, surprise, fear, then smooth confidence. What are you talking about? Don't. I pushed the evidence toward him. Just don't. He glanced at the papers, then at me, like a chess player calculating his next move. Harper, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been fucking your vice president of marketing. Or how you've been spending our money taking her to 5-star hotels. It's not what you think. Really? I laughed, and it sounded strange even to my ears. Because I think you're planning to spend our anniversary weekend with another woman. Please, tell me how I'm misinterpreting that. He sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. You've been so distant lately, always focused on your students, your lesson plans. When was the last time you actually paid attention to me? The audacity of his words hit me like a physical blow. So this is my fault? I didn't say that. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. But relationships are a two-way street. Vanessa. She sees me. She understands the pressure I'm under. And I don't. I've supported you through every promotion, every late night, every weekend working. I've built my entire life around you. That's the problem. He stood up, pacing. You've lost yourself in being my wife. You used to be fun, spontaneous. Now it's all about your work, your routine. I felt something snap inside me. My work? I'm a teacher, Ethan. I shape young minds. What exactly do you do that's so important? Push papers and apparently your coworkers? His face darkened. See? This is exactly why. Why what? Why you couldn't keep it in your pants? Why you had to destroy our marriage? It's not destroyed unless you make it that way, he said, his voice softening. We can work through this. I'll end it with Vanessa. We can go to counseling. I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. This man who could stand there, offering to fix things like he'd dented my car instead of shattering my entire world. When did you stop loving me? I asked. I never. Because I stopped loving you about 2 minutes ago. The words came out calm, certain. When you tried to blame me for your choices. He reached for me again. Baby, please. I stepped back. Don't call me that. Don't touch me. In fact, don't come home tonight. Or tomorrow. I need time to think. This is my house too, he protested. The house that my inheritance helped buy? The one that's in both our names? Yeah, we'll see about that. Something ugly flashed across his face. You're being hysterical. Let's talk about this when you've calmed down. I am calm, I said, and I was. Eerily calm. But you should know, I sent copies of everything to my lawyer this morning. Just in case you were thinking of doing any creative accounting before your trip. He went pale. You're bluffing. I picked up my phone, showed him the email confirmation from the law firm. Enjoy Chicago, Ethan. I hope she's worth it. As I walked upstairs, I heard him calling after me, his voice tinged with panic. But I didn't turn around. Instead, I went to our bedroom and started packing his bags. The time for tears was over. Now it was time for war. The 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test felt like a cosmic joke. I sat on the bathroom floor of my sister's guest house, where I'd been staying for the past week. Staring at the little window that had just complicated everything. 3 tests. All positive. A knock on the door made me jump. Harper? You've been in there for 20 minutes, Chloe called out. I opened the door and wordlessly held up the tests. Chloe's eyes widened. Oh shit, she whispered. Are you sure? As sure as 3 different brands can make me. She sat down next to me on the bathroom floor. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Jenna, having dinner with Ethan tonight. He's a mess. Says you're not answering his calls. What's going on? My stomach lurched, and not just from the morning sickness I now realized I'd been ignoring. Jenna, my supposed best friend, who'd introduced me to Ethan 8 years ago, was having dinner with him? Unbelievable, Chloe muttered, reading over my shoulder. Want me to tell her what her precious Ethan's been up to? No. I stood up, suddenly energized by anger. I'll do it myself. An hour later, I walked into the restaurant where Jenna had tagged herself on Instagram. They were sitting in a corner booth, their heads close together. Ethan's hand was on Jenna's arm. "Well, isn't this cozy?" I said, approaching their table. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Jenna's face flushed red. "Harper. I was just trying to convince me to take him back." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo of Ethan and Vanessa at dinner. "Did he tell you about her? Or about the Chicago trip he's planning for their romantic getaway?" Jenna's face crumpled. "He said you were being paranoid. That you were making things up because you were jealous of his success." "Of course he did." I turned to Ethan. "You're good at that, aren't you? Spinning stories, making people believe whatever version of reality suits you best." "Harper, please," Ethan stood up, reaching for me. "Let's talk about this privately. Like how you privately discussed our marriage with Jenna. Or how you privately planned your affair with Vanessa." Other diners were starting to stare. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You're making a scene," he hissed. "No, you made the scene when you decided to destroy our marriage." I felt oddly calm, even as my world was imploding again. "By the way, Jenna, you should know, he's been using the engagement ring fund we've been saving for your brother to pay for hotels with Vanessa." Jenna gasped. Her brother and his girlfriend had been waiting months for Ethan to make good on his promise to help them buy a ring. "Is that true?" she demanded. Ethan's silence was answer enough. "I trusted you," Jenna whispered, gathering her things. "I defended you to Harper. God, I'm such an idiot." She rushed past me, tears in her eyes. Ethan watched her go, then turned to me with fury in his eyes. "Happy now? You've ruined everything." "No, you did that all by yourself." I placed my wedding ring on the table. "I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the divorce." "Harper, wait." His voice softened, became pleading. "We can fix this. Whatever you want, counseling, a fresh start, anything." For a moment, my hand drifted to my stomach. Should I tell him? Would it make a difference? But then I remembered how he'd blamed me for his choices, how easily he'd lied to everyone we knew. "The thing is, Ethan, I don't want to fix this anymore. I want to be free of it. Of you." I walked out of the restaurant into the cool evening air, leaving him calling after me. My phone was already buzzing with messages, probably Jenna, maybe Ethan, possibly even Chloe checking on me. I ignored them all and drove to the drugstore instead. I needed prenatal vitamins. Whatever happened next, I had more than just myself to think about now. And I was done letting Ethan Ellis determine my future. The ultrasound screen showed a tiny flickering heartbeat. 8 weeks along, the technician said. I'd asked for the first appointment of the day, hoping to avoid running into anyone I knew at the hospital. "Would you like a picture to take home?" she asked. I nodded, thinking about the baby book my mother had kept for me, filled with ultrasound photos and milestone markers. This child's book would be different. No proud father smiling in the pictures, no joint announcements to family and friends. Lucas was waiting in the hospital cafe when I came down. He'd insisted on driving me after finding me throwing up in the faculty bathroom yesterday. "Everything okay?" he asked, sliding me a ginger tea. "Yeah, it's..." I pulled out the ultrasound photo, then quickly tucked it away as I spotted a familiar figure approaching, Vanessa Reed. Wearing a designer suit and a concerned expression that looked rehearsed. "Harper," she said, stopping at our table. "I'm glad I ran into you. We should talk." Lucas started to stand, but I grabbed his arm. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of my friend." She sat down uninvited, folding her manicured hands on the table. "Ethan's a mess. He's not eating, barely sleeping. This situation is affecting his work." "That must be inconvenient for you," I said, fighting another wave of nausea. "He loves you," she insisted. "What we had. It was a mistake. We've ended it. When? Before or after I caught you? She had the grace to look uncomfortable. I know you're hurt, but... No, I cut her off. You don't know anything about me. Just like you don't know anything about love. Love doesn't book hotel rooms behind someone's back. Love doesn't destroy families for fun. It wasn't like that, she protested. We never meant to. To get caught? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly. Tell Ethan if he wants to discuss anything, he can talk to my lawyer. And Vanessa? That promotion you're up for? Good luck explaining the company's morality clause to the board. Her face went pale. You wouldn't. Try me. She hurried away, her heels clicking on the hospital floor. Lucas whistled low. Remind me never to get on your bad side, he said. I made it 3 steps before the dizziness hit. Lucas caught me as my knees buckled. I need to sit down, I mumbled. You need to eat something, he corrected, flagging down a nurse. 20 minutes later, I was back in an exam room, hooked up to N4 for dehydration. The doctor was frowning at my chart. Your blood pressure's concerning, she said. Have you been under unusual stress lately? I laughed until tears came. You could say that. Well, whatever it is, it needs to stop. This pregnancy is high risk now. You need rest, regular meals, and absolutely no drama. No drama. Right. I was about to text Chloe when my phone lit up with a message from Ethan. We need to talk. Coming to Chloe's tonight. Important. Don't do it, Lucas said, reading over my shoulder. Whatever he wants to say, it can wait. No, I said, touching the ultrasound photo in my pocket. It's time he knew. All of it. That evening, I sat in Chloe's living room, the ultrasound photo on the coffee table between us. Ethan stared at it, his face unreadable. Is this some kind of joke? He finally asked. Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing about our marriage. A baby won't fix this, Harper. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm telling you because you have a right to know. What you do with that information is up to you. He stood up, running his hands through his hair. This is... I can't deal with this right now. I have the Chicago trip, the merger. And Vanessa? I asked quietly. His silence was deafening. Get out, I whispered. Harper. Get out. As the door slammed behind him, I felt something inside me break. But this time, it wasn't my heart. It was the last thread of hope that the man I married still existed somewhere inside the stranger he'd become. The morning Ethan was supposed to leave for Chicago, I woke up to find my bank accounts frozen. All of them. Even my personal savings account from before our marriage. He's trying to force you to talk to him, Chloe said when I called her, panic rising in my throat. Don't give in. But I had bills to pay, prenatal vitamins to buy, and a lawyer who needed her retainer. I had no choice. I agreed to meet Ethan at our house, our former house. Walking in felt like stepping into a museum of my previous life. Family photos still hung on the walls, my coffee mug still sat by the kitchen sink, everything perfectly preserved like the moment I'd left. Ethan was waiting in the living room, looking immaculate in his business suit. You're late. You're a bastard. I remained standing. Unfreeze the accounts. After we talk. He gestured to the couch. Please sit. I'll stand. Fine. He loosened his tie. I've been thinking about the baby. Don't. We could try again, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. Marriage counseling, a fresh start. I'll cancel the Chicago trip. Too late. I already sent the board of directors proof of your affair with a subordinate. His face darkened. You what? They're reviewing it this morning. Probably why your phone's been buzzing for the last 5 minutes. He grabbed his phone, color draining from his face as he read the messages. Do you have any idea what you've done? Exactly what you taught me to do, protect myself. By destroying my career? He stood up, hands clenched. I built that company from nothing. And I built a life with you from nothing. Guess we're both losing things we care about. His laugh was ugly. You think you're so clever? You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I do. I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. I'm recording this conversation. Every threat, every attempt at manipulation. My lawyer's going to love it. Your lawyer can't help you if you can't pay her. He stepped closer. How long can you last without access to your money, Harper? A week? A month? How long can you last without your reputation? I countered. The board knows everything, the affair, the misused company funds, the fake expense reports. Even that business trip to Vegas that was actually a weekend with Vanessa. His hand shot out, gripping my arm. You vindictive bitch. Let go of me. My voice shook, but I held my ground. Or I'll add assault to the restraining order I'm filing tomorrow. The front door opened. Lucas stepped in, followed by Chloe. Everything okay in here? Lucas asked, his tone making it clear it wasn't really a question. Ethan released my arm, straightening his suit. We're fine. Just having a private conversation. Not anymore, Chloe said, moving to my side. Harper? I nodded, suddenly exhausted. We're done here. No, Ethan said, desperation creeping into his voice. We're not done until. His phone rang. He glanced at it, swore, and answered. I could hear raised voices on the other end. While he was distracted, Lucas guided me toward the door. But Ethan's next words stopped me cold. What do you mean, suspended pending investigation? This is ridiculous, she's lying about everything. The pregnancy, the affair, all of it. The room spun. I grabbed Lucas's arm for support. What did you just say? I turned back to Ethan. He covered the phone. You heard me. You think you're the only one who can play dirty? I told the board you're mentally unstable, making up stories because I asked for a divorce. Including this convenient pregnancy. The pain started low in my abdomen, sharp and insistent. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. Harper? Chloe's voice seemed far away. You're bleeding. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was Ethan's face. Watching me fall with the same cold detachment he'd shown when I told him about our baby. Some things, I realized as consciousness slipped away, you can never take back. And some betrayals cut too deep to ever heal. The hospital room was too bright, too sterile. I woke to the steady beep of monitors and Chloe asleep in a chair beside me. My hands immediately went to my stomach. The baby's stable, a nurse said, appearing at my bedside. But you're on strict bed rest. No more stress. I almost laughed. No more stress. Right. There's someone insisting on seeing you, she continued. Your husband? We can send him away if you prefer. Before I could answer, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He looked wrecked, tie gone, shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Chloe jerked awake. Get out. Please, he said, his voice rough. 5 minutes. I nodded to Chloe. She squeezed my hand and left, but not before shooting Ethan a look that could have melted steel. He approached the bed slowly, like I was a wounded animal that might bolt. The doctor showed me the ultrasound. Now you believe me? Harper, He sat heavily in the chair. When they rushed you into emergency, there was so much blood. I thought. I realized. That I wasn't lying. My voice was steady, despite the tears threatening to fall. That maybe I wasn't the crazy, vindictive wife you painted me as to save your precious career? I got the call while you were in surgery. The board voted unanimously. I'm out. He laughed hollowly. Funny how none of that seems important anymore. Don't. I turned away. Don't pretend you've suddenly grown a conscience. It's not pretense. Seeing you collapse, knowing I caused this. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. You didn't just cause this, Ethan. You chose it. Every lie, every night with her, every attempt to destroy me, those were choices. I know. And I'm sorry. Please, let me try to make it right. For you, for the baby. There is no more us. I cut him off. The man I married died the moment he chose another woman over his family. Harper. But you want to make it right? Fine. Here's how: sign the divorce papers. Release the accounts. Walk away. And the baby? Will know they have a mother who loved them enough to demand better than a father who only showed up when he had nothing left to lose. His face crumpled. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the man I'd fallen in love with, vulnerable, real. But then I remembered how easily he'd worn other masks before. I do love you, he whispered. No, you love the idea of me. The wife who made you look good, who supported your dreams while setting aside her own. But that woman's gone. The monitor's beeping increased. A nurse appeared, frowning at my vitals. I think it's time for you to leave, she told Ethan. He stood, straightening his shoulders. The accounts will be unfrozen by morning. I'll have my lawyer send over the signed papers. Goodbye, Ethan. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know, I said quietly. But sorry doesn't fix what's broken. After he left, Chloe and Lucas came back in. Lucas handed me a chocolate bar, my favorite kind. You okay? He asked. I touched my stomach, feeling the smallest flutter of movement. No. But I will be. The board called, Chloe said. They want to talk to you about Ethan's replacement. Apparently, they're impressed with how you handled everything. I don't want anything to do with that company. Maybe not, she smiled. But they're offering a pretty generous settlement to keep it that way. I closed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. The past weeks felt like a lifetime, each betrayal and confrontation leaving its mark. But for the first time, I could see beyond the pain, beyond the revenge. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your opponent. Sometimes it's about finding the strength to walk away and build something new from the ashes of what was lost. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment, watching the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. My baby girl kicked inside me, strong and steady, like she was reminding me we'd made it. The divorce papers had come through last week. Ethan signed everything without argument, including the generous settlement and support agreement. I heard through Jenna that he'd moved to Seattle for a fresh start. Vanessa had apparently moved to London. Good riddance to both of them. Earth to Harper, Chloe called from the kitchen. These boxes won't unpack themselves. I was sorting through the last box when I found it, my old wedding album. I'd forgotten I'd packed it. Want me to throw it out? Chloe asked, watching me carefully. No, I said, surprising myself. It's part of the story I'll tell her someday. About how her mom found her strength. The doorbell rang. Lucas stood there with takeout and paint samples. Thought you might want to start planning the nursery. He'd been doing that lately, showing up with just what I needed, exactly when I needed it. Not pushing, just being there. It scared me how much I'd started looking forward to his visits. Perfect timing, I said, letting him in. Though I should warn you, Chloe has strong opinions about color schemes. I heard that. Chloe called out. And I'm right about the yellow. As they playfully argued about paint colors, I opened my phone to a new email from Ethan. My heart didn't race anymore when I saw his name. I signed up for therapy, he'd written. Not to win you back, I know that's impossible. But because I need to understand why I destroyed the best thing in my life. I hope someday our daughter can know a better version of me than the man I was. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Some wounds need time to heal, and some stories don't have neat endings. Harper. Lucas was watching me, concern in his eyes. You okay? Yeah, I said, putting my phone away. Just thinking about endings and beginnings. Speaking of beginnings, Chloe interrupted. Lucas, tell Harper about that house for sale near the school. He shot her a look. I was going to bring that up naturally. What house? I asked. It's nothing, just. There's this craftsman with a great yard, perfect for kids. It's close to both our schools, and. He ran a hand through his hair. I know it's too soon, but maybe someday. The old me would have panicked at the hint of future possibilities. But I wasn't that person anymore. Tell me about the house, I said. Later that night, after they'd left, I sat in what would be the nursery, surrounded by paint samples and half-unpacked boxes. My daughter kicked again, and I placed my hand over the spot. You know what, little one? Sometimes the happy ending isn't the one you planned. Sometimes it's better. I picked up my phone and typed a final email to Ethan. I hope you find what you're looking for. She deserves to know both her parents found peace. Then I picked up my phone again and texted Lucas, about that house. When can we see it? The future stretched out before me, not perfect but full of possibility. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, desperately trying to hold on to a life that was already gone. I wished I could tell her that losing everything would lead to finding herself. But maybe that's the thing about rock bottom, you can't see the way out until you start climbing. And sometimes, just sometimes, what you build from the ruins turns out to be stronger than what fell apart. I looked at the paint samples scattered across the floor, each color representing a different possible future. Tomorrow, I'd start painting. Tonight, I'd just breathe, grateful for endings that make way for new beginnings.